work on this room for our sound and the interface with Zoom and all those kinds of things that we've needed since COVID, even more than ever. So we're trying to figure that out in the next few weeks. Ready?
Priority.
Mayor, we're ready.
We're not.
We're out. We got God bless you.
Some of us are.
Flash drive.
Football thing.
There was Rice Krispie treat right there.
Anybody?
Your priority.
No,
I
I
wasn't think so. I was there earlier.
Mark didn't even make everyone say trick or treat.
That was nice of him. Yeah.
Super short.
Yeah, it was. Because it's split.
Sure.
Mhm.
Got one.
Why is that not showing?
Welcome everyone to the Evans Redevelopment Agency meeting for October 5th, 2020. I'll call the meeting to order. May I have roll call, please?
Chair Rudy.
Here.
Vice Chair Clark.
Here.
Commissioner Spear.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson. Present. Commissioner Neal.
Present.
Commissioner Castle.
Here.
Commissioner Mortensen.
Here.
Thank you. Time on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? No, thank you.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item 4, consent agenda. Item A, approval of the September 1st, 2020 Evans Redevelopment Agency meeting minutes.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item 5, new business. Item A, ERA 2021 budget. We'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, we'll be bringing the ordinance and resolution for your consideration for the city budget at your next meeting due to the noticing time requirements for that. We thought we'd stay on track tonight with the Evans Redevelopment Agency budget for next year, and for a very brief presentation covering the detail that's in your packet, I turn it over to our Finance Director, Jackie Trout.
Good evening. The 2021 budget for ERA is comprised just of a handful of items, very similar in structure to how the 2020 budget was. You'll notice a couple of items under revenue. The bulk of revenue does come in the form of a loan from the city to the ERA to accomplish the activities next year of the ERA. We have a small amount of property tax revenue that is broken out and reported separately from the county that we do track directly into the ERA. On the expenditure side, we have two items. The first is personnel, that is obviously city personnel. The cooperation agreement does specify allowable time activity by named position of city staff that we're able to allocate to ERA. We have estimated about maximum per that agreement for next year's budget. We do anticipate a lot of work from many different staff. So we're budgeting $100,000 next year for that staff time, as well as about $110,000 of supplies and services costs. That is largely anticipated legal costs to perform blight studies, additional necessary studies in the ERA areas, as well as continuing work from the retail consultant for the ERA and some professional services costs. We do show it in a much more condensed version. It's a shorter term financial plan than the city is in our long-term 5-year financial plan. So we do really focus on next year's activities for the ERA. With that, I think that hits the major details, unless there's other questions.
I'll just note that the work that Jackie refers to, it will be a heavy redevelopment agency year, as we have committed in our agreement with the county to consider the 23rd Avenue alignment area as another redevelopment project area. And that can be, there is some cost involved with that. There are blight studies, independent financial analyses required there. So much of the $85,000 there in the professional services line item that we haven't had in the past few years is to ensure that we can move forward with that work. So that's what that is, in case there's any question. And we'll also be hopefully continuing full speed with both the Randy's Diner Corner, which we're very close to having a proposal for council on, and also hopefully development of the Eshes Market Corner, if we can find the right partner for that in the next few months. So that's the substance of the work that will be funded with this budget. That concludes our presentation.
Questions or comments?
That's pretty straight.
Councilmember Neal.
Yes, Jackie, I'm gonna show my ignorance here. How do we get property tax revenue from this property?
We get property tax revenue from the tax increment for the ERA area. So we did designate the ERA both on the Highway 85 corridor area as well as the historic Evans area. So any improvements to the properties above that 2014 base year is that tax increment portion of property tax. So they split that out separately from the city's tax roll, and we get that separately.
It's kind of the crux of the redevelopment model is that once these areas qualify for blight under the state laws, then the city can actually retain all of the property tax that would have gone even to other jurisdictions for those properties, so that money can be used as we're using it for redevelopment of those properties, and the areas are then enhanced, and then the revenues start to go back to the other agencies.
Questions or comments?
Just very quickly, how do we determine what the ending fund balance should be? Like the target ending fund balance. So looking at it and going, okay, why would we carry $180,000?
It's a good question too, and you'll see those bottom two lines. We do kind of just keep track of any of the additional revenue that the city is paying for ERA activities is being repaid in essence by the sales tax increment finance dollars that we get, similar to the property tax. So we really just look at it each year, trying to ensure that we still have a balanced budget, keeping some cash on hand without really instituting a hard and fast target on those.
Bottom line, in this fund, since the loan from the general fund is so prevalent, it's more math than it is. It's good to keep track, but I think the more important number that we'll want to reconcile once these projects come to fruition is the loan from the city general fund, from the city to the ERA, so that the city can be repaid with the project's revenues. That's still the goal once those occur.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to adopt resolution number ERA-001-2020.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve resolution number ERA 001-2020. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. We adjourn. We go back into our city council meeting.
Mayor, I move to go into executive session to receive legal advice from the city attorney regarding law enforcement and licensing of hotels, and to receive legal advice to specific legal questions pertaining to the resolution of litigation under CRS sections